My name is Ralph Ben-Murgy, and I host a podcast called Not That Kind of Rabbi. Basically, what I'm doing is looking for the spirit in people, what animates them to do what they do, and the kinds of stories they can tell. You know, people believe they don't have a story. Oh, no, I don't really have much of a story. And then when you talk to them or ask them questions, you'll find out everybody has a story and that they're all wonderful. I think it's a really good idea for us not to become parochial, not to just think of ourselves, the Jewish people this, the Jewish people that. So many people of different faiths and different inclinations have so much to offer to us as Jews, but also to the world in general. So I tend to look for the spark in people more than I look for the affiliation in them. To support our work at the CJN, go to thecjn.ca/donate. And if you're Canadian, you'll even get a tax receipt.
God bless you all. Even with the restrictions, we had a great rally today. Thank you to all.
That's some of what it sounded like Sunday in Toronto at the 61st Weekly Rally for Israel, an event that was started by just 3 friends holding Israeli flags at the corner of Bathurst and Shepherd a few days after the Hamas attack on Israel last year, and has now grown into Canada's largest continuous post-October 7th Jewish advocacy event. Hundreds of people come out each Sunday to stand for 2 hours, rain or shine. They sing songs, wave Israeli and Canadian flags, call for the release of the hostages, and pray for IDF soldiers. The Toronto event is organized by the Toronto Zionist Council, while rallies are held each and every Sunday in 3 other communities too, linked with the Run for Their Lives campaign. The one in Vancouver takes place at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Winnipeg's is a silent vigil at Kenniston and Grant in a heavily Jewish neighborhood. And the Montreal event starts at Hampstead Park and weaves its way along different routes each week. Although the marches are designed to keep the 101 hostages front of mind, over time, organizers say they've also helped the participants develop a stronger sense of Jewish solidarity, of allyship with interfaith groups, and finding a supportive community in the face of the unprecedented explosion of anti-Semitism in Canada since October 7th.
I'm not in the policing business and I'm not in the prosecution business. We're in the unity business. So let's focus on that. And that's the messaging. And that's why we have such enormous crowds every single Sunday, rain or shine, because people need reassurance. They need to feel part of something.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Monday, December 2nd, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, and made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. I always wanted to work for the CJN, even when it came as a newspaper in our house when I was growing up. It was a celebration. Everything stopped. We read the paper from cover to cover. Hi, I'm Ellen Besner, and I'm a journalist at the Canadian Jewish News, and I host the CJN Daily podcast. The CJN Daily is a way to showcase Canadian Jewish newsmakers around the world and hearing from the newsmakers themselves. I'm proud to do the work to continue to showcase the ways in which our friends, our neighbors, our rabbis are finding ways to find the beauty in their Jewish identity while upholding the civil rights that Canadian Jews have had since 1832. I'm proud to showcase how our community leaders are leading during these turbulent times, but we also hold them accountable too. We can only continue to tell these important stories with your help. Please visit thecjn.ca/donate to support our work, and you'll get a Canadian tax receipt to boot. All 4 rallies have attracted high-profile international pro-Israel speakers like Elon Levy and Shai Davidai, who dropped in when they were in town. Also, hostage families have come, soldiers' families, survivors, and Canadian politicians from different levels of government, but not the mayors of Montreal or Toronto so far, although not for lack of trying on the organizers' part. In Toronto, the rally had been a largely uneventful and festive safe space. More recently, it's attracted the unwanted attention of groups of masked anti-Israel, pro-Hamas Palestinian supporters, wearing keffiyehs who bring loudspeakers, wave signs and flags, and try to outshout and intimidate the Jewish group. Some participants at the pro-Israel rally have complained Toronto police seem to be helping the protesters more than keeping the Jews safe. And last weekend, the situation escalated when Rebel News founder journalist Ezra Levant got arrested when he tried to interview some of the anti-Israel protesters. To hear more about how the rallies got started and who's behind them, we're joined by the organizers. From Montreal, Michal Bental is a visual effects compositor who works on Hollywood blockbusters. Gidi Mammon is a Toronto immigration lawyer and head of the Toronto Zionist Council. Vancouver baker Daphne Kedem launched anti-judicial reform rallies in her city, then pivoted after October 7th to support the hostages. And in Winnipeg, Michel Aziza is a retired mechanical engineer and volunteer. And just one small note, he speaks through a temporary tracheotomy device, so it makes his voice sound a little hoarse. Welcome to the CJN Daily, all of you.
Nice to see you, Ellen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Could we just briefly have you start with how you got the idea to do this?
Okay, hi, Montreal represent here. So originally we actually started doing the posters campaign. It was literally 2 or 3 days after October 7th. It's an activity that started by 2 artists from New York and spread it out like super fast globally. And I saw it, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna take this thing because, you know, everyone just thought, what can we do now? Everyone were so hopeless. And we just started with the posters. It went amazing. Hundreds of people hang out the posters around the city. The whole city was covered with them. We created dialogues. It was amazing. But as you know, Montreal have a cold winter, and at some point we had to stop because logistically, technically it's a problem. And then we started thinking about what other activities should we do, because we wanted to continue doing this fight for the hostages, right? And then started the group of Run for Their Lives, which started to do the marches, and we thought, okay, it's a great idea. Why not we just take this initiative, and we take people with us from the community and start doing that and see how it works. And at the beginning, it was very small. It was 15, 20 people at max. And it grew, and I can tell you that since then, we're doing it every Sunday. We had more than 200 people walking. We bringing speakers at the end of every march, and we know that it gives people a comfortable place to support each other, to learn more about the hostages, and to learn more about different groups and organizations and initiatives we have in the city. And I know it made people feel much stronger.
Okay, Gidi, yours was a bit of a different start. Can you briefly tell us how?
Well, you'll remember the attack was on a Shabbat, and on the Friday after that, on October the 13th of last year, was a day that Hamas called for a global day of rage. And unfortunately, our community warned everyone to be very careful and not to send their kids to school and not to wear a kippah, not to wear Magen David, and not to show public displays of being Jewish or pro-Israel. So me and my friend Charles and my friend Esther went to the corner of Bathurst and Shepherd to wave the Israeli flag and to wave the Canadian flag as a call to our community not to be afraid, that there's nothing wrong with being Jewish, there's nothing wrong with supporting the state of Israel. That was the original purpose, a bit of defiance to a day of rage. But what happened is we saw people driving by with literal tears in their eyes. When they saw us, they would whisper thank you, and they gave us a fist pump, and I realized how hurt and damaged we were. And people were terrified. And then I turned to my friends and I said, you know what, we got to come back here on Sunday. This community has to heal. And that's what we did. We started originally the 3 of us, and on that Sunday there was maybe 8 or 9 of us, and then it grew, and now we've had over thousands of people at the rally at Bathurst and Shepherd, and we've made local news, national news, international news. We constantly shout out for our Israeli soldiers, for our hostages, and for our community. And we haven't missed one, rain or shine, snow, ice, minus 25, 26. We're there every single Sunday, no matter what.
Thank you, Giddy. Let's speak about minus 26. That means Winnipeg, because you probably are the coldest part of this podcast. First of all, where is it held and how did it get started?
So how it got started was a little different than Montreal and Toronto post October 7th. The organized Jewish community here immediately organized two events. One was on October the 9th at the local Jewish community center. 800 people came. We could see that it was something that the Jewish community needed to do. They also organized a demonstration at the Manitoba legislature. And that drew out the Jewish community, but also other communities from Winnipeg. And our story is that at the legislature protest, many of us were holding hostage signs. And when we were heading back to our cars, many people driving down that street were honking at us and giving us the thumbs up. And we came up with the idea that that's what we should do. We should hold rallies on a street in Winnipeg, just holding hostage signs just to show our support. And it's been every single week. So this Sunday will be the 55th rally. We stand at a busy intersection in Winnipeg, tons of traffic. Our rally is maybe a little different. It's a silent rally. We just stand along the street. We typically have between 200 and 500 people come every weekend. On average, I would say 250 people come. We hand out the signs. So we do control the messaging. We don't want the rallies to be protests. They're rallies of support for hostages, for Israel, for the IDF, for hostages, and for the families of hostages. We have been successful in drawing people from outside communities. And so the Iranian community, Filipino community, big representation from the Yazidi community, and of course, many Christian groups come to the rally. Typically, we have no counter protests in Winnipeg, so our rallies are silent. We get lots of support from drivers passing by. Occasionally, there are a few pro-Palestinian drivers, but for the most part, and it's been very, very successful. The organized Jewish community in Winnipeg is also very involved in the rally. So this is being promoted by the Jewish Federation of Winnipeg, as well as all of the local shuls in the city.
And from Vancouver, you guys have been at the Art Gallery of Vancouver from the beginning, Daphna?
Well, we were rallying at the Vancouver Art Gallery every week for the democracy of Israel. This was under a group called Unacceptable, and it was easily swayed after the 7th of October 2023, and we had our first one on the 9th, which was very, very emotional. It was very raw. It was very it was much pain. And we all brought candles. And since then, it's been every Sunday with the support of the community, and it just grew and grew. I can say the first month we had thousands coming. The idea was to bring speakers and to bring musicians. We still have speakers every single week. The difference now is that we have a theme. We have a different theme. If it was the last week was the International Day of Elimination of Violence Against Women, we did a theme about that. We had strong women speakers. I mean, it is a meeting place and people come to in solidarity, but it is hard. It's hard to stay sustainable also because it's been so long and people have their own thing or summer vacation. At some point we had police with us because we were marching every single week. And what happened is that we've done it for such a long time. Luckily, only the first 2 weeks we had an incident. We didn't have any incidents, so they are not present anymore, but we do have security, paid security through the Federation. It's a safe place for people to come and together every Sunday. And it's rare that we do have a family of hostages coming. There's some local families that come and speak, but it's always about being there for them, for Israel, for peace, finding a way to get this over with. This is what we're doing.
Who pays for the security in Toronto, especially because you have seems like a much bigger problem than they do?
Right. So we've had over 350 police at one of our rallies, and now we average about maybe 150 police officers per week. Yeah,
Really? I didn't know that.
oh yeah,
I'm shocked.
if you take a look at the north side and the south side of Shepherd, you'll see two streets with each side of the street with about 7 or 8 large vans with police. We have mounted police on horses. Every week we have a vehicle which does nothing but facial recognition. Unlike in Vancouver, we don't get any support from the Federation or from anything for security. We have Magen Herut with Aaron Hadida, who provides security
For free?
for free. Now, in our situation, you can't imagine the security situation. We have people starting at 7 p.m. the night before in vehicles to make sure the site is not compromised in any way, because as you know, there was a problem with a bomb threat, I think it was in Montreal. And then we have our crews coming 7 a.m. the morning of the event, and we relieve the security people, the overnight security people, and then the setup starts at 9 a.m. and the police presence is enormous, but necessary. We all want to be safe. Now, to tell you, for 61 weeks, thank God, we've never had an incident except for one time when we had someone grab a flag from an elderly person, and then he was brutally assaulted, sent to hospital. But besides that, thank God, we have been okay.
And the police don't charge you. This is free.
The police don't charge us, but I don't even want to start to think about what that bill looks like. There's no end in sight yet. God willing, there will be soon. But a lot of people out there can complain about the police. They don't treat us fairly. They don't let us do this. They're too tight, whatever. But they have been there from the beginning, and they have been very, very generous with support. Many weeks I said, "Wow, that's too much," but I'm not going to tell them, what the threat looks like. They have their sources and they know what's going on.
You mentioned a bomb threat. We bring in Montreal.
You know, a lot of stuff are happening in Montreal all the time. I'm sure you're following social media literally these days, every day you can see a new incident that's happening in the city. But as for our group, we have strategic meetings every week to discuss about the current situation, what we can do to ensure the safety of our walkers, because as you know, we have walkers who are might be older, so we didn't necessarily chose the most main area in the city to do our walk, just because we know there are other ways to get the exposure. We use a lot of social media, and we do use the service of the police. We work closely with them. We have a team member who in contact with them every week, discuss with them the route we're taking, what could be the issues, how we tackle them, and sometimes we change the time, we change the route, just because changes it really helped to secure the activity better. And so far it works well, and we always tell our walkers, don't engage. If you see anyone who looks suspicious, just keep on going. You have the police with us, they will handle it. Don't provoke anything and you will be safe. And so far it's working great, and we never see any issue. Once in a while we see someone who chant Free Palestine, but it's okay, it's nothing.
Have any of you considered moving to a safer place or a different place to avoid trouble?
No, we haven't, and we consistently get police protection every single week, and we're not planning to go anywhere else. It's a busy intersection, one of the busiest ones in Winnipeg, and happens to be a Jewish area as well.
What's the point for hiding? What's the point? This reality is not easy, but it's something that we have to do. We have to do our best to stay safe, but then we can't hide. We can't stay in our homes. Then the other narrative will win. We don't want the hostages be there for longer. We have to be courage. We have to do what we can. We have to do the best we can with all the tools we have and go out and keep doing this. And we have no choice.
How has the tone, the atmosphere been, I'm going to say changed, could also say hijacked by what you had wanted it to be to what the protesters who are counter-protesting are doing? And how do you feel about that? And I'll ask that to Gidi first, and then everyone else if you want to add in.
So in a way it has, in a way it is not. For 61 weeks, our messaging is very, very plain. We are not speaking to the opposite side. We are speaking to our own side in our own community. We are trying to unite our community and make them feel proud to be Jewish, proud to be Zionist, proud to be backers of our state of Israel, proud of our soldiers, and prayful for our hostages. We're not in this business to argue with pro-Palestinian forces. We're not trying to persuade them that we are right and they are wrong. So we ignore that sort of thing. So since they've started coming around 5 or 6 weeks ago, we tell our crowd very simply, ignore them. Do not engage. We're never going to persuade anybody of anything. They're going to believe that this is their land, and we're going to believe that this is our land, and that's the end of it. So the messaging hasn't changed one bit at our rally. The only thing that's been different is that the security has gone, the security concerns are much more significant, but the Toronto Police Services are doing a great job dealing with that.
Wait, but we have to stop. We have to stop because there was a whole incident with the Sinwar chair last week, which the whole world saw, and they're provoking you guys, trying to, I think, right?
That has not changed a thing for us. They brought masks, they brought blood, they brought everything that they wanted to the intersection, and all it does is highlight in perfect contrast what one side of the street looks like and what the other side of the street looks like. If that's their messaging, let that be their messaging. Let our community know what we are dealing with. So I'm not going to discourage them from doing anything. If they're doing something hateful, that's none of my business. The police will take care of them. We have laws in Canada, and I'm expecting the police to uphold those laws and let them do their job. And we have brought Jews from every corner of Jewish life, the Orthodox, the Reform, the Conservative, the Sephardim, the Ashkenazim, and not just that, like we have the Druzim, we have the Iranians, we have the Indians, the Albanians, the Kosovars, the Filipinos. Everybody is coming and uniting under our message. And if we start talking about how terrible the other side, that's not something that brings people together. It's just not a message that coalesces a community.
Let's talk about Michelle. Who are some of the most famous or high-profile people that have come to yours?
We don't bring speakers to the rally. After we hold the rally, one of the participants speaks to the crowd and in many cases passes on the message from Israel. We have a large Israeli community in Winnipeg, and so we are connected indirectly to some families of hostages and victims in Israel. So oftentimes the message is given to the crowd. Our local rabbi then takes the lead with prayers for the state of Israel, for the IDF, and for hostages. And then we sing the Canadian anthem and the Israeli anthem.
Okay. Daphna, in Vancouver, I know you said that you do programming themes every week.
After about 60 weeks, we've had at least 150 speakers from all around. We do try to have a diverse community come and support us. Like someone mentioned, the Iranians, the Sikhs, local pastors, local leaders. And also what helps is we get schools coming in support, and they bring their music and they bring their students to speak. We had a national Indigenous leader. It's a very much of a communal event. And when we do the chanting also on the streets and also when we walk, we always say it's from 24 different nationalities, 5 religions. This is a humanitarian crisis. And we say, let all the Christians free, let all the, even we say Muslims, and we make it more general and to get across that it's not an Israeli Jewish issue. It's a very, very global issue, and people should care. If they have compassion in them, they should care. And you were talking about if there are any Palestinians interruptions. We say and we insist as a regulation, as a guidelines, is not to engage, not to come across, because this would not be the time that we can change hearts and minds on a 2-minute conversation or yelling at one another. We do have every week a table, more like a hasbara table, when people do want to know and do want to understand. This is besides the rally, part of the rally, where they can come and ask questions because they see so much leaflets and false information, even stickers around town saying so many things. So I think it's important, or also handing out pamphlets and leaflets, really understanding it. There's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of people engaging. So we're trying to do everything in a way every week.
It is telling that Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and Winnipeg have direct connections to October 7th from families or actual Canadians who were murdered or kidnapped and murdered. And I wondered if people remember that when they come out. Michelle, did you want to say something? Because you have Vivian Silver in there.
Right. And so Vivian Silver from Paris, her sister lives in Winnipeg, and her sister happened to be a teacher at the local Jewish school. And Winnipeg is a small community. Everybody knows everybody. Vivian Silver's sister taught my kids. And so Vivian Silver's sister, at the beginning, just couldn't come to the rallies. It was just too much for her. But then she decided to come, and she comes every single week, and she draws people. She drew the Gray Academy of Jewish Education, all the kids. Many kids often come to the rally because of Vivian Silver. So for us, the personal touch. And in our case, I have to say, again, because we're a small community, and the rallies are heavily advertised by the Jewish Federation of Winnipeg and by all of the shuls, we have a lot of loyal participants, the same people who keep coming to the rallies. And, rain, shine, snow, cold. Last year, minus 40 something was the coldest. We don't stand out for as long. We stand out for 15, 20 minutes. But I don't think we've ever had less than 150 people at the rally, and we'll continue on every single week.
We have Ben Mizrahi in Vancouver and all his family, and it also changes the crowd. I have to say the average crowd age, because I still feel we are missing the younger generation. I think it's hard to get them involved. So we do get a lot of his friends coming. And what happened is, since I've met our community, our local community, because we have a hardcore of people coming every single week, and those people, it's new friends, and it's really knowing your community better this way, in a way, in a sad way.
I agree 100% with the comments just made about what we are like now. When we started last year, 90% of the people, I had no idea who they were, and they started coming every week and every week. And we are now, I promise you, even more than family. And we work hard to schlep speakers and equipment and generators and tables and canopies and ladders every single week. So I promise you, it's more than family now. I don't see my cousins and my aunts and my uncles 61 weeks in a row. The second point that I want to make is that in the first several months, not the first several weeks, the first several months of this, we didn't see kids because the parents were saying they themselves were afraid to come. And it took time to see 10, 20, 30, 40 rallies before people got the confidence to come. And then they started coming in greater and greater numbers, and now they're bringing their kids. And that's what we're trying to say. That's the message. Don't be afraid to be Jewish. Don't be afraid to be a Zionist. Don't be afraid to stand out in broad daylight with an Israeli flag in one hand and an IDF flag in another hand. This is Canada. My parents came to this country in 1965 from Morocco, not so that I should hide in my basement because I'm Jewish or I'm a Zionist. We're not going somewhere else. We're not bothering other people. In our own street corners, we're doing this.
Do you have nicknames for each other, like for your group? You are the, I don't know, Legionnaires or something. Is that a thing?
Bring them home, Vancouver.
Yeah, bring them home, Montreal. And we use
No, but like real nicknames that nobody actually knows.
No.
I can't say that on the air.
I'm sorry, how are you called then? It's not bring them home now, because we do have other which are very I would say Zionists that are targeted at something else rather than bring them home. Is that not your main?
Our rally is called Rally for Israel.
Oh,
and we promote very strongly our soldiers and our hostages and our community.
But do you have separate rallies that are just bring them home now?
Yes, there is. There's runs, but it's not really a rally. So, but they're not the same.
In Montreal, we kind of have everything all together in our group, and we also have Syrians and Iranians who hold Israeli flags and sing Israeli songs with us, and it's something you could have never imagined will happen before, and it's just beautiful for this tragic reality. But then this tragic reality really brought us united. And that's the only thing I can really hope for, that we're going to continue become more and more united until they're all released.
All right. One lasting memory or something that sticks in your mind for you personally after a year as the leaders?
For me, it was one time somebody came up and said, can you make bracha for this particular soldier? They gave me their Hebrew name, etc. And I was recording the video, but I didn't know that the family of the soldier was on FaceTime. So what happened is then after I finished, they turned the camera to me, the phone to me, and I saw this family all gathered and huddled around, and they were like shaking their heads. They said they couldn't believe, because I think it was also dead of winter. They couldn't believe that we were out on the street with the IDF flags and the Israeli flags making a bracha for their child that was in Gaza fighting. And the tears and the emotion just hit me with a fist right in the center of my chest. And I said, I'm getting it. You know, I'm understanding what we're doing better now, because they really needed to see that. They needed to see that their children who are in harm's way were not forgotten by the Jews of the diaspora. And of course, I want to unite my community, but our soldiers are the ones who are really paying the price of this war. And I wanted them to know they're not alone.
For us in Vancouver, we don't get a lot of families of the hostages, and we did have one. Her name is Yasmin. She's Omer Nutra's cousin. And it was her first time actually marching. We marched the streets of downtown Vancouver, and it was so powerful, and it was so touching for her. And that was the peak of all the 60 weeks we had, because it was close to home. It was finally really powerful because of the meaning of what it was for her. It was not just someone speaking and reading out of paper or singing songs for Israel. It was the actual feeling that it is happening. She's here with us, and we are trying very hard, and we are doing our best to be there with them and for them. And it was a very powerful march.
Yeah, and for me, I think what affects us the most is we walk away from every single weekly rally thinking and knowing that we're not alone. There are so many other communities that are coming to the rallies. You know, we may think we're alone, but we're not alone. And we may think that we don't have a lot of support out there, but we do have a lot of support out there.
I want to thank all of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Welcome, everybody.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily. It's made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Like this podcast, all of the great content that we produce here at the CJN is made available for free. So please consider making a charitable donation to support our work. And as a thank you, you will receive free home delivery of our quarterly magazine for a year. To donate, just go to thecjn.ca/donate. Our show is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman. Our executive producer is Michael Freeman. And our music is by Dov Beck-Levine. As always, thanks for listening.
I recently wrote a story about the editorial landscape of campus newspapers, how many student newspapers throughout the country are rejecting pro-Israel perspectives. It also focuses on what students are doing about it. This was an important story that I think highlights the cultural war that's taking place on campuses right now as students continue to adopt an anti-Israel and, in some cases, anti-Jewish perspective. My career as a journalist actually started at a student newspaper years ago, so this was a full circle moment that's allowed me to revisit my roots and see how much has changed in a post-October 7th world. My name is Mitchell Konski. I cover campus life and education for the Canadian Jewish News. If you want to support this work and everything else that we do at the CJN, please visit thecjn.ca/donate. And if you're Canadian, you can also get a tax receipt